Hey everyone, so here's a quote from today's guest. The recruiting industry has spent a decade perfecting post-apply scoring systems. AI automatically evaluates, ranks, and rejects candidates after submission without their knowledge or participation. The promise, recruiter efficiency through automated screening. The reality, though, legal liability, damaged employer brand, and missed talent. The solution isn't better post-apply filtering; it's better pre-apply validation. That was written by my industry veteran Doug Berg from Match2, the universal candidate profile platform, and he joins me now from Zoom. Hey, Doug, it's good to see you again here at RecTech.
Hi, Chris. Good to be on.
Excellent. So, good article. You pinged me on LinkedIn about it, and I thought it was a good top talking point for today's show. So, let's dive into it. This recruiting black hole we've been in for seems forever, Doug.
Yeah.
Resumes seem to disappear. What's the primary reason here companies struggle to give candidates real-time feedback, do you think?
Yeah, look, I think the recruiting industry has been one-sided forever, right? I mean, every company's got their stack of what I'll call screening out technology. It's like we have these CRMs and career sites and ATSs that are designed to help process requisitions and candidates, but it's a huge transactional system, Chris. It's not a good, healthy, bi-directional marketplace kind of concept, right? So candidates show up, they put their nickel in, they apply for a job, and then they go away, right? So there's not really a good interconnected interplay of things that are happening. And there's a lot of moving parts in the recruiting industry, right? There's companies that have jobs, they go open, they go closed. They've got all these applicants, they're moving them through their process. But on the other side, the candidates are equally as busy as actors, right? They're traversing across workdays and success factors and companies and career sites. And I used to giggle that recruiters used to always use a spreadsheet instead of their ATS to keep track of their stuff. Well, the candidates are still there
Hmm.
because all they've got is an AI apply machine gun right now, and they're trying to play the numbers game against these systems that kind of screen them out. And so what we were trying to do, Chris, is build the true two-sided market, right? Like let's actually um, try to give the candidate the ability to actually have a universal profile, to travel across all of the hiring platforms and really deliver a consumer grade experience that didn't just start at high, because today everything starts at apply for the candidate, but 90% of career site visitors never apply. So how can I know who's on my career site? How can I engage with them and actually connect with them in a way that doesn't add a ton more work to my recruiters, but still it allows me to connect with candidates that I might either hire today or in the future? So we had built this talent community concept back at Jobs to Web, which captured millions of people, which was great, but it was a captured record that died over time that I had to keep campaigning and but imagine if candidates, just like on Facebook Marketplace, could actually connect with companies, build their favorite employers list, say, look, like my Google Doc resume, I'll invite and share it with you, company retailer, you manufacturer, you whatever. And now that creates a true data sharing type of a concept that's compliant and consented. And so that is how I can help connect and introduce people. But then as I move into understanding, like, what is a good job for me?
Yeah.
That's the thing AI has not been used enough for. I mean, if you search for a nurse job on some of the healthcare sites, even single company sites, and there's 500 openings, it's like, well, which one's best for me? I'm an ICU nurse that works with, children in ER and trauma situations. Like, you can't search based upon that stuff. And so, when we think about putting the candidate first and saying, hey, upload your resume and we'll match you to the best full requirements, now I'm not showing janitors brain surgeon jobs, and I'm actually helping to make sure every candidate's applying for the best job. And then as they apply, let's gamify this. Let's allow candidates to actually see why they match. So we've talked about diversity, equity, inclusion. It's always been kind of talk. This is experiential inclusion, right? This is actually allowing the candidate to see why they fit, allow them to advocate for, like, hey, I just didn't say I did team collaboration, but I've easily done that for the last 3 experiences. And so then they can affiliate that requirement match to their resume and actually go up. And by the way, the bots can't figure this out. So it all of a sudden does business with all the fake and bot applies. But we also keep track of everything that the candidate changed. And so I know a lot, like with these avalanche of fake bot applies, candidate takes the job, turns it into a resume, and hits apply. But what's interesting is when you have a universal candidate with a universal profile and they're going and applying at a bunch of different companies, now I can start to tell you how many things did they change during the application process from their core profile, which helps me to understand, whoa, is this candidate gaming the system or not? Or is the profile that they uploaded and 80% matched and the two things they changed were really things I believe that were things they probably had? I'm actually able to cut the noise down by like 90% in my flow through. And what's interesting is we've had thousands of candidates use this, Chris. For candidates that are 50% or less matches to a job, if you let them see that, they'll self opt out. Only 10% of candidates will actually move forward and go through the full apply if they know they're still not a good match.
Yeah, that's
So,
an interesting. Let's stop there. Let's unpack that a bit. 'Cause that's an interesting topic. I think is in this pre-apply assessment you're talking about is are you a fit for the job, right? So
yes.
dive deeper into that if you could. I think that's it's important.
Yeah, look, again, it allows the candidate to participate instead of just transact. And so by informing them about this, and by the way, I think there needs to be a broader lens on this too, because just because I'm not a match to a job today, was I a match ever in the last 6 weeks or 9 weeks? Or will I maybe be a match in the future? And so you don't have to always just say, hey, it's today or go away to the candidates, right? Our ability to still, again, capture people and connect with them. And then as they evolve and grow, and as our needs from the hiring side change and grow, having a true connected experience there informs and allows for better, I like to say, like, remember the old days we used to try to go through the hay to get to the needle. Well, the problem with all this AI stuff is it's all fake needles now on top of the needle. So it's like it's all fool's gold. So how do you get through and discern that on any given day? And I think that's the challenge at hand when you just keep on throwing AI volume at AI screening. It just doesn't solve it. And yet true, transparent, interactive, informed experiences that are conversational in a UX kind of a way is actually honoring to the candidate, gets me more and better data, and still delivers a really good product to the recruiter and hiring manager because I've actually deployed a completely different, chessboard to my equation for how I capture, connect, qualify, and engage talent. So
Yeah. And the word I'm hearing the word more, transparency a lot more in these discussions, Doug. And
yeah,
it seems like candidates they want to know what's going on, right? And it just seems like AI I think it can fix that if it's used properly. But there's no reason we should be rejecting a candidate and not telling them, at least acknowledging it. I just saw a thing on LinkedIn today. Somebody posted, I applied to 100 jobs. I heard back from 44 of them. The other 56 have ghosted me. And that's a pretty good rate, actually. But
it is a good rate.
there's no reason for that 56, those 56 companies to just ghost them. I mean,
Well, and again, the fact that all these systems are siloed, and you go to almost any 80% of the major enterprise companies, they have a career site, then they have their CRM, and then they have. So I see this site, I search for jobs, I join the talent community, then I join the ATS system. So I might be in three different systems at one single company, and it's like, how do I log back into these? Can I self update my data? Or am I just going to, and so the other complaint from candidates is I always hear from companies when I don't want to. And when I want to, I don't hear anything back. But that's the perplexity of what happens when you don't allow for participative and easy, seamless systems. So I like to say employers have integrated everything on the back end, but they forgot to integrate the most important part, which is the candidate. And so that's why, at least for the first time, we've got 100 integrations to every CRM and ATS. And I can consumerize the application, which allows the candidate to kind of have their own profile, connect with the companies they want, have curative control over who gets my updated profile, who doesn't, just like we do with Google Docs every day.
mhm.
And then when I apply to jobs, did anyone even look at me? And not only am I progressing with them, but how can I make it easy for me to share the fact that I've applied to 8 other companies. I'm at second interview with somebody. I'm getting an offer. And so if you want to reprioritize people inside of our siloed systems, we have trapped data, and I can only see how you're progressing with me. But imagine how much more powerful it would be if I can actually see how the candidate is progressing, which can only be done today by a recruiter calling everybody every day and saying, "Hey, what's up? Are you progressing? Are you getting an offer? Are you still on the market?" And that's why there's ghosting everywhere. And we like what we do ghost busting, right? Is because you can finally let the candidate make it one click easy to broadcast update into the actual systems to say, I took another gig, I'm off the market. Here's where I went. Here's my updated profile. If you want to call me in 6 months, I'll let you know if I'm on the market or not. It's much more informational efficient when you can do it and make it a multi-platform and multi-client updating system for the candidate.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole brand reputation of all this is key too, right? If you're ghosting candidates, that just it damages your brand, and it just furthers this perpetuation of the black hole out there. And
Yeah, especially because candidates, especially the more experienced ones, like if you're a healthcare worker in Minnesota, there's maybe 14 companies that you would want to work with, and over a
right,
10-year time frame, you've probably applied to any or all of them at different times. And if that experience was bad, um, you know, here's the other surprising thing is candidates that are 75% or better matched for jobs, which I would think is a pretty good, especially healthcare workers, 80% of them don't apply. So they're using the job discovery to say, do they need me? Is there spots for me? Is there not? Okay. And then candidates, we've surveyed them and said, like, why didn't you apply? And they said, well, it's Wednesday at 11. I'm just on a shift break. I was just looking to see, I will apply tonight. Oh, but the kids needed or were sick. And then I will apply on Saturday. But so we're looking at when the first visit to the follow-up was. But one of the things that was interesting was probably 50% of the candidates said, I'm not going to apply into the ATS because I'm never going to hear anything back. So until either a recruiter calls and reaches out to me or I can get a friend referral into the business, I'm not going to do it. So
so they've already given up at that point.
it's a black eye for making it, as hard as doing a tax return just to be in consideration for a job.
Yeah,
I
you
mean, imagine how different it would be. And by the way, we do this. If a surgeon or a physician showed up to a site, uploaded their credentials, and said, "Hey, it's me. Oh, hey, here's two or three phenomenal, great jobs that I would be a good match for. I'm interested, but you get back to me, right?" And to get an email or a call from the physician recruiter either later that day or in the morning saying, "Hey, we saw you stop by the site. We'd love to answer any questions." Oh, you do relocation. Oh, great. Yep, we can do that. What, systems, EHR are you working on? All that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that to me is a model that's a consumer grade experience that is breathtaking and or remarkable to the candidate side. And that's going to fill 70% of the hard to fill jobs in the future. And I don't think it adds a lick of work to the recruiters
yeah, yeah,
because I think if you can take their noise and wasted time down, reviewing and chasing off market candidates, they can now start to focus on passive candidate, visitor, high quality candidates that are on the front doorstep of the career site. We've just never been able to engage with these people.
so you have all these automated touch points, it sounds like, for the candidate in terms of the communications you do. How much of that is text versus email, for example?
So, so a big part of what we're trying to do, Chris, is be integrated into any company's existing platforms, right?
Mhm.
So, if you have Phenom on the front end and Workday on the back end, if they're pre-apply candidates, we write every person that uploads and matches, right? They need to say, look, I accept your TOS and I will share my resume and you can call me. We put that person into the Phenom. So then if Phenom's going to do an email back to them or a text to them or whatever, they're the ones actually doing the post initial engagement. We do have an ability to monitor for matching people and say, hey, if a physician comes in that's a 90% match, they didn't apply after 2 days, put a note into the Phenom person. And yes, you could send an email to the recruiter, or you can say, hey, I want to send a candidate an email saying, please come back and apply. But we push that through the API into the CRM because that's the system of record that needs to manage the relationship with the candidate. And we just don't want to add any more touch points for the recruiters. So our goal is like, let's put better data, deeper data, and more actionable signal data at the fingertips of where recruiters are doing their everyday work. Let's just make it more real, updated, so that they don't have to waste their time chasing candidates that are gone off market, don't want to hear from us, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Um, let's talk about lawsuits because they're in the news a lot. Eightfold, Workday, and the whole AI scoring thing seems to be.
yeah, look, there's law firms that are proactively publishing articles saying if anybody feels like they've been dissed by they're
Right.
naming names, right? Like of ATSs and stuff like that. So they're trying to build these civil suits around this, which is really, really something. And I think it is something that
Doug, from a vendor standpoint, are these lawsuits putting vendors on notice right now from your perspective?
I
Are they
think
worried? Mhm.
so. So to me, I'm surprised that the platforms are getting sued, frankly. I think they're easy targets.
Mhm.
But as you and I know, when you configure your AI or your scoring system, the employer is the one that's setting the configurations for what's a match, what's not a match, how do we auto reject, how do we not. So I know why they're going after the platforms. I don't know or think that they'll ultimately be held responsible. I think a lot of this comes back to the employer, but the employers are worried to say, look, if we put this stuff in place and we are keeping candidates in the dark, if you will, and again, they're kind of almost being forced to do it, Chris, right? Because the avalanche and noise of the amount of inbound and fake and bot applies coming in has forced this issue for me to have to use the same counter in technology to be able
Right.
to help process people. So again, until you change the game on the doorstep of your career site and actually make it participative, inclusive, and candidate reviewed and confirmed, where you're not scoring somebody, but letting them, basically advise you as to why they're a match, and you still take that in and process the candidate through the process. I think that's going to be a pretty big difference, not just in terms of the legal aspects, but I think that's going to be a better candidate experience, and I think it's going to bring a better inclusive, advocate, transparent process to bear. So and
Be
the
honest.
irony is all the platforms are building stuff for the recruiting side because they
Right.
still are trying to keep the employers in charge of the data and the relationship. And I think we're the only ones that we've seen be able to deploy candidate facing user experience stuff that can get dropped into any career site. So that's what's fun about what we're doing is you don't got to change platforms. You're not stuck with your stack.
Yeah.
Like you can now become better than Eightfold or better than Phenom with a drop-in script into API keys. And so that's what's kind of fun about how companies can start using this AI in super compliant ways. Um, and I know a lot of companies are like, we can't use AI, we can't, data privacy, HIPAA, what all that. But what's good about what we've done, Chris, is we can deploy this in a way that's what I call outside in. So if you think about it, today I give Indeed my job feed. Indeed matches it to candidates. Indeed has them do an Indeed apply, and Indeed sends me the applicants, right? I didn't make Indeed go through this whole process, but I still have apply with Indeed on my career site. So we built ours so that you can do the same thing with Match2, but it's connect with technology. It's not apply with technology.
Yeah.
And so you can connect with the company, you can connect with jobs, and basically the candidate sets up their own Match2 account, just like they'd set up the Indeed account. I still have your job feed. I can match them to jobs. I can bring them through the intelligent apply, and I can put that application in. And never the candidate had to go through, or never did we put AI basically on the property of
So,
the company's
with,
career site or domain. And so there's ways to deploy this even in environments that are super strict in terms of like not being able to use some of this stuff.
Now with Match2, Doug, what happens when I get rejected for a job using the Match2 system there? Tell me
Yeah. So what's neat is as you're being dispositioned in all the ATS systems, obviously people usually will get an email. In our system, because we're a closed loop system, candidates on one side, companies on the other, as the recruiter is updating disposition in the ATS, the candidate can kind of see what's happening, right? And a part of what we built in our building is more of a Slack experience between the post apply and post visit experience. So a job that I applied to might go away, but if I was a great match, it instantly shows me three similar jobs that I'm a high match for in the company. So I didn't have to get emailed and job alerted and all that other stuff. We've built in this automated interactive experience that will keep people re-engaged because I have a connected relationship between the candidate and the company. And so same thing with like hey, I took a job. Here's my updated profile. I'm off the market. Don't turn off my job alerts, like, but if at the same time I'm back and I've got a new and updated resume, just like we do on LinkedIn, right? Hey, let my buddies know I got a new job. But this is a direct connection between the candidate into their workday or into their Beamery or Phenom. So now I can be first to know that a great high potential candidate's back in the market, and I can build my agentic stuff on my platform to instantly task the recruiter or set up a live chat between the candidate and me, and hey, what's going on, and let's do an interview. So all of that kind of stuff is going to be automated and interplayed between the candidate side and the company side. So
I have
it'll
this
feel
feeling.
almost like I'm on Facebook Marketplace, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
hey, you're still selling your boat? Yeah, no, or somebody's coming to look at it. It's that's the kind of experience I think the talent industry is needed, and I think nobody has really built it cross-platform, right? Greenhouse has
Yeah.
kind of started it with
Yeah, I just had Daniel Shade on the show. Actually, we were
yeah,
talking
with
about
their
all
with
this.
their
Yeah,
their kind of their candidate community and stuff like that. But we think that it's a great start, but having something that actually traverses all of the different platforms is going to be critical, because there's companies that have Greenhouse on top of Workday or Greenhouse on top of SuccessFactors. So how do you interact and broker data or make it feel seamless to the candidate while you're still transacting with a whole bunch of systems? And I think that's what we pulled off.
I have a feeling that when it comes to these AI interview tools and this AI scoring, is that every candidate's going to have to get some kind of, or should get some kind of like receipt, like job application receipt, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Here's the data you submitted, right? Here's the result of the score if they were scoring you. Just sort of proof that, you
Closing
know,
of the loop. Yep.
yeah, closing of the loop there. It seems like that could be a very easy win for these AI recruiting tools. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yep, I think that's exactly. I was a headhunter, like a lot of us were for 8 or 10 years, and I always got the forensics on what happened. They just picked somebody that had more weight with this or that, and I know employers are nervous about sharing data like that. But look, I think systems today, especially hiring systems, are like employers love the informational
It doesn't have
asymmetry.
to be why, actually. It just says, okay, you submitted here, here's your
Yeah,
thing.
but
We
but
moved
it's
on.
like
I think
even
jobs
when
are
I
just money.
apply to
Just
a job
hearing
on the
back is a win.
but it even could start at the front end, Chris, where it's like if I'm looking at a
Yeah,
job,
set their expectations too.
already 400 candidates and somebody that's already got an offer, like, why would I apply to this job?
Yes.
So those are data points living on the employer side, but for whatever reason, they never make it. It's like Amazon. I can see if what the reviews are. I can see if they're out of stock. I can see if there's only two left. And so I think you're going to see a revolution of that kind of data having to start showing up. And a part of what we're building is what we call load balancing of applications. And so I can actually get that signal. And if a job already has an offer out or already has a sufficient candidate, we're not going to recommend the job. If there's two same jobs, let's redirect the candidate where I need inventory, right? And so we're going to start seeing a lot more of that kind of intelligence happening, which optimizes the opportunity for the candidate and makes better traffic for the recruiter on the back end. So,
Yeah, I wrote a piece on my blog about, I call it job throttling,
mm-hmm.
where if you get too many applications for a job, like the ATS should shut it off or postpone it, whatever it is, and just let the recruiters, get through those initial applications. Do not promote that job. Take it off these search engines. That kind of stuff, right? So that's
Yeah.
coming, I think.
Well, and look, when we have a universal candidate, universal profile, and the candidate's got their own personal ATS, I call it, as they're, imagine if when you receive an applicant today, same thing. Hey, Doug just applied for a job. He's a 92% match, but he's already at the offer stage with four other companies. So by combining situational data with experiential data, some companies are going to say, oh my gosh, we got to jump on this. Some are going to say, it's too late. And so but it gives them the data point so that they can build the actioning that they want to do and get the efficiencies that they want, because ahead of this, you've never had that data. So,
Yeah. And it's still true that if you're the first to apply to a job or one of the first, you are much more likely to get an interview and that kind of stuff. And
oh yeah, no, I've had TA leaders jokingly, they said, look, if my ATS sorted candidates alphabetically, I would never have anyone with the name past Carlson. I would have my company. I thought that was funny.
that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. All right. Very good though. Well, the article's pretty cool. I'll put a link in the description for the audience out there. Again, it's called Candidates in the Loop versus Candidates in the Dark. What else do you want to leave with? What are you guys working on, Doug, there at Match2?
Yeah,
Anything
look,
new?
I mean, we've built finally the My Match 2 universal profile. It's live on career sites now, which is great. So we're actually seeing the participation and all of the goodness of what we hoped would happen in terms of reducing the noise piece of it. I think what's interesting is a lot of companies are even doing layoffs right now, Chris. And so, they kind of lay everybody off. And I'm like, well, hey, wait a minute. You want to stay connected to those people? Because, today you say go build your resume on Indeed or on LinkedIn. But if you send them to my Match2, we can set up their universal profile, match them to jobs better on sites, optimize their applications. But because you referred them to us, in your whoever, Novo Nordisk, we'll link you to that candidate. And now you'll be able to see that outgoing employee population, what companies they're applying to, what's happening in the market, where they ultimately ended up with. And then if and when you want to ever re-recruit them back, you have a connection with the candidate and you'll be able to start remarketing and retargeting to them. So, we're just trying to think longer ball, if you will, with
Hmm.
companies and employers that are thinking about this beyond just what rec I have to fill today and what candidate's going to fill the rec today. And it's a real kind of guppy mentality to the talent strategy, and we're by default trying to make sure that people are starting to think a little bit more longer, a little bit more consumer, a little bit more transactional or transparent with what they're doing. And we think that what this will also do is kind of like what PayPal did for eBay, right? So on eBay, people could transact and win auctions, but then what did you do? How'd you pay each other? Did you send me a check? Did you send me a wire? Like, as soon as they solved the paying problem, then all of a sudden I had a universal payer, which had good experience and they had credibility and they had reviews. And so I could trust the buyer, I could trust the seller. And we think that that same thing is going to happen when you start to connect the two sides of the talent industry together. You're going to start getting incredibly better signals and much better efficiency on both sides. So we're excited to be building it out, and we're excited we're rolling out on a lot of the big platforms. So you're going to start seeing this as the new connect with technology on probably most of the major ATS and hiring systems. And one of them that we're working and we're very close with is actually like Brass Ring. They're still at it, right? And so,
Brass ring. Okay. There's a
there's
blast from the
companies that
past.
still use that to do a lot of stuff, and it's fun for us because we kind of get to make things brand new, and bring kind of a new, refresh technology to them that transforms, a static hiring system that's siloed to a dynamic living network between candidates and companies that use their system. So it's been fun. It's been fun to kind of bring that level of efficiency and technology and innovation to the market.
Awesome. We'll check them out at match2.com audience. And Doug, thanks for stopping by today, man. Great conversation.
Good to see you too, Chris. I hope we can play golf in the snow in Vegas again sometime.
Definitely, definitely. That'll do for this episode of the Rick Tag Podcast, also part of the Purple Acorn Network. Thanks again to Jobcase and Dahlia for their sponsorship. Be sure to follow myself and Rick Tech Media on LinkedIn, see every podcast, video, and blog we publish. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, always be recruiting.